Back here at Gleason's Gym, Brian Kenny, Bert Randolph, Sugar. It's ringside, top 10 heavyweights. We are ready for number 3. Jack Dempsey checks in at number 3 for Bert. Why Jack Dempsey so high?
Greatest attraction in the history of boxing. Drew crowds 120,000, up to 120,000, made $1 million a fight. But it was better than that. He laid endwise 60 opponents, including exhibition in the first round in his career. 60.
An exciting guy to watch. Hard guy.
He was the most exciting thing ever in boxing, really. Fought like an avenging angel of death. Beat everyone with a left hook from hell. And he was taught that left hook by Jack Doc Kearns, who met him way back when he was a hobo, traveling the rails.
How rough was his upbringing? I mean, I mean, he was living just and fighting for food, right? How bad was it for him?
He was fighting in saloons on sawdust floors. He was making a meal, maybe. The only fight he ever was knocked out in against Jim Fireman Flynn, he hadn't eaten in 4 days. But he was fighting for anything. He meets Jack Doc Kearns, who becomes his manager and teaches him how to use a left hook by tying his right hand behind him. And Jack Dempsey comes out with the most ferocious left hook in the history of boxing, including Joe Frazier's. And he now comes to New York. And through dint of picking the right fights, dare I say, continues to rise up the ladder and becomes the challenger for Jess Willard.
How active was Willard at this point? He had defended how many times since getting the title from Jack Johnson?
He wins it in 1915, defends it once, puts it under his arm, and goes home to Potawatomi, Kansas.
Sitting on the title.
Yes.
Okay.
And Dempsey earns the title shot by knocking out Fred Fulton, the number 1 contender, in 18 seconds, and Carl Morris, the number 2 contender, in 14 seconds. That's pretty good.
Taking it by force.
Yes, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And now he gets the fight July 4th, 1919, against Jess Willard. Now, Jess Willard is a man-mountain, 6'6.5". And Tex Rickard, who's putting on the fight in Toledo, Ohio, goes into Dempsey's dressing room before the fight and says, "You better be careful. This man has killed a man," and he had, Bull Young. He said he's tough, he's rough, he beat Jack Johnson. Dempsey just looks at him. Comes the fight, and it's an enormous heat. I mean, it's the worst heat wave in the history of the Midwest on July 4th. Comes out, after one little tap, he throws that left hook. Willard goes down, his jaw broken in 7 places.
One shot.
One shot. Knocks down Willard 7 times in the first round. All of a sudden, the bell rings and nobody hears it in the tumult and the screaming of all the fans. And Dempsey leaves the ring. His manager, Doc Kearns, is jumping up and down. He's got 10-1 odds that he'll knock him out in the first round. But in those days, unlike today, the count did not continue beyond the bell. The bell is the end of the count. Willard lives to fight 2 more rounds, and that's it. And he's in the end of the 3rd round, he's sitting there saying, "I have a farm in Kansas. I have a farm in Kansas." That's all he's got. Dempsey has now become the biggest thing on the sports landscape, including Babe Ruth. In fact, Paul Gallico, who basically created and called it the golden age of sports, has Dempsey as the first person in there and the highest, and Babe Ruth second before Red Grange, Tilden, and Bobby Jones. And Jim Murray, of recent vintage, 15 years ago, writing for the Los Angeles Times, said, when Dempsey retired, they retired the title champ. That's how great he was.
You have Dempsey Firpo as one of your greatest fights of all time.
Ever.
So that's your number 1 fight.
The greatest ever.
It was a burner. Explain that fight.
Firpo was a man-mountain. He was bigger than, if possible, Willard. The Wild Bull of the Pampas was his name. And here he was fighting an equally flavorful name, given to him back in his hobo days, the Manassas Mauler, because he was from Manassas, Colorado.
Right.
Damon Runyon gave him the name. So you've got the Manassas Mauler, you've got the Wild Bull of the Pampas. They're fighting in the Polo Grounds in front of 100,000 people shoved, jammed in. The bell rings, the first punch Firpo throws, he knocks Dempsey down. Dempsey gets up, the first punch he throws, he knocks Firpo down. Boom, bop. He goes on, Dempsey knocks Firpo down 6 more times, but the time that he didn't knock him down is the most famous knockdown in history. Because, and it's in the George Bellows painting, Firpo jumps up from one of the knockdowns, rushes Dempsey, and pushes him and hits him at the same time through the ropes, and he's flying backwards, feet flying. As he lands, he said, "Guys, somebody help me." And Jack Lawrence of the New York Times, who was typing away, so-and-so hit so-and-so, just was so ticked off, he just shoved whoever was on his typewriter, and he basically shoved him back in the ring. You only get 10 seconds. And he goes back and knocks down Firpo. It goes into the second round, he knocks down Firpo 2 more times. 3 minutes and 59 seconds, you had 11 knockdowns. That ain't a bad fight. That's a lot of excitement, the greatest fight in history. But that was Jack Dempsey. He gave you excitement in every fight.
Both fighters touch gloves as this World Heavyweight Championship fight gets underway. Gibbons ties Dempsey up immediately. Tom knows Dempsey's style of steamrolling his opponents in the first 2 minutes of round 1. No secret that Jack Dempsey's interpretation of a good performance is the fight he ends prior to round 2. As the referee breaks the clinch, Dempsey lands 3 crisp left hooks to the body. The same left hooks that fractured 3 ribs of heavyweight champion Jess Willard 4 years ago, when Dempsey won the heavyweight championship in Toledo, Ohio. Dempsey is putting tremendous pressure on Gibbons here in round 1. Jack's trying viciously to get in the big punch to end it, as he's done so many times in the past 6 years. Gibbons took round 6 from the champion. Tommy landed effectively while continuing to be an elusive target to the champion's left-hand bomb. Dempsey throws 2 vicious left-right combinations at Gibbons. Jack isn't accustomed to seeing his opponent still standing after taking any one of those particular blasts. Dempsey wants this to be lucky round 7. He's putting constant pressure on the challenger, and Tommy tries desperately to tie up the champion and then get away. The champion in white. Watch Jack attack again with more bone-crushing punches. The referee tries to separate the 2 men, but he's having his problems. Dempsey jumps in with a blistering right hand to the head, and Gibbons finds himself halfway out of the ring. Round 7 comes to an end with Gibbons surprising everyone with his brilliant defense. This is Tommy's 103rd fight, and he's yet to be knocked off his feet. He's given away 15 pounds to the dynamite-punching Jack Dempsey, which very few boxing experts believed he could do. Tommy holds on now. Less than a minute to go, and he's determined to hang in there. The fighters will momentarily be completely lost to our cameraman, who can't follow the action to the extreme left corner. But if you look closely, you can see the shadows of the fighters on the canvas. It's all over. The referee raises the hand of Jack Dempsey, awarding the champion a 15-round decision. Just 20 minutes later, Jack Dempsey and his manager Jack Doc Kearns were on a train leaving town after grabbing the last $56,000 left in the till. So on July 4th, 1923, the far-sighted businessmen of Shelby, Montana made their indelible impression on boxing history, but not without paying a tremendous price.
We return here ringside. Our top 10 heavyweights. We're down to the final two. Larry Holmes, George Chuvalo, Bert Randolph Sugar. And basically, we know there's two left. There's Joe Louis, there's Muhammad Ali. That's a tough choice. Bert Randolph Sugar comes in. This is like the runner-up at Miss America or something, Bert. But number two, and you're going to know who's number one. Number two, Bert has Muhammad Ali. Explain the rationale, Bert.
I thought he was great. He called himself the greatest. We bought it, but I didn't think he was the greatest. I thought he was the fastest. I thought his hand speed was unbelievable. He did not have the knockout power of Joe Louis, maybe because heavyweights are supposed to have knockout power. I give Louis more of credit in that ledger file. I thought Muhammad Ali moved much better than Joe Louis, but Joe Louis, once he got somebody on the hook, they were on the hook. Muhammad Ali meant more, as Joe Louis did sometimes, to some people outside the ring. Mm-hmm. But in the ring, I thought that while Muhammad Ali was the greatest in his era, he was not the greatest no matter what he said. Joe Louis was. 25 defenses for Joe Louis, 22 knockouts in pursuit of his defenses.
Larry, what are your thoughts? Who's the greatest? What are your thoughts on one and two?
When Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis, I got to say Muhammad, because Joe Louis is stalker. And you got to catch Muhammad because he's going to be round.
They're not fighting each other. They're fighting in their eras. I'm not going to judge you.
I know
against...
there are two ways of looking at it. Can you imagine that guy beating this guy? And it's tough to do that between eras.
Well,
but or you're looking at the body of work.
I imagine Muhammad Ali beating Joe Louis.
That's great. And, how about in their era?
In the era, Joe Louis is too old. I don't know that.
Who is now? All right. How about as far as the career of Ali and split up in two through no fault of his own, really. It shouldn't have been split up the way it was. But his ability to go through Sonny Liston, who was a dominant heavyweight champion seemingly at the time, then even though lose to Frazier, then beat Frazier, then George Foreman after that. I mean, your thoughts on just the whole body of work for Ali?
Well, I admired Ali from day one, from the first time I got to be with him and step in the ring with him and see how he worked. And I thought that Ali would have beat Sonny Liston very easily. I thought he would beat Joe Frazier like he did. Even with the first fight, I thought Ali went in there a little bit too quick, wasn't sharp enough, didn't get the fights he needed before he got in there with Joe Frazier. But as far as that goes, I think Muhammad Ali is over.
You fought Ali twice, and before the banishment, and then after the banishment. Your thoughts on Ali?
First of all, you probably were champion of Canada while Joe Louis was champion. You were so long.
I don't want you to let him answer his own question.
There you go, George. All right, go ahead, George.
Thank you, sir.
You two guys want a hotel room? What the hell's going on here?
Your thoughts on Ali?
Well, first of all, you have to pick. When you think of someone, you think of him at his absolute best. When I think of Ali at his absolute best, do I think he would beat Joe Louis at his absolute best? I would say yes. When you look at Joe Louis, all the trouble he ever had with a guy, if you had guys right in front of him, he'd knock you dead. If you had guys like Max Schmeling the second time around, he'd knock you dead. If you had a guy like Buddy Bear right in front of you, he'd knock you dead. But if you had guys who could move, like Jersey Joe Walcott, a lot of trouble with Jersey Joe, a good mover. He had trouble with a guy like Bob Pastor, a little guy. It wasn't that big guy, but a lot of trouble, giving him all kinds of problems. A guy like Billy Conn in the first fight, a puffed up light heavyweight, almost beat him in the first fight. Joe had trouble with stick and move guys. And who's a better stick and move guy than Ali? Ali was also 20 pounds heavier than these other guys who give him trouble, maybe even 25 or 30 pounds heavier than some of the guys. A lot bigger, a lot faster, and I think better reflexes. I don't think it'll be a contest. I think Joe was the best finisher in the heavyweight division, no question about it. Joe was a dynamite finisher, but he had to have you. He was like a guy right in front of you. He was deadly. But if a guy with movement, he had all kinds of problems. And when you get a big, fast guy like Ali with him, I think Ali would be a lead pipe cinch to win.
Before you say anything, I got to do this, George. Put your hand up, George. Put your hand up there.
Go ahead, Bert. You're on. Go ahead. Your rebuttal.
Okay, we'll do it one more time.
Time. Bert, go ahead.
Now, wait a minute, George, you mentioned Bob Pastor. You mentioned Billy Conn. You mentioned Joe Walcott. What did he do with all three of those people when he caught them? Knocked them out.
Yeah, but they're all small guys.
Wait a minute. Time out. That's a different argument. I'm rebutting your previous one. The bottom line is he knocked these people out when he caught them.
Joe Walcott, the first time he actually should have won the fight.
How about the second time?
He got robbed.
He finally caught him.
We're talking about fighting the first time.
And his last fight the last fight of his career before he retires.
And these guys were only 190 pounds.
Yeah, but who's to say?
Wouldn't even be heavyweights.
Wait a minute.
Right, you put another guy in another era.
Take a breath. It's my turn. Take a breath.
It's always tough to do that, Larry, because, and I agree with you, just like when we make the argument for Lennox Lewis at his size, but it's hard to take a guy from the era and say, if Joe Louis was fighting in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, different nutrition, people were bigger in those days, it's difficult to even match those eras together. That's difficult to do, but there are two ways of looking at it, and to see that Ali wasn't getting hit, how would he get hit by, would he get hit by Joe Louis in your fantasy Bert Sugar matchup?
If Joe Louis caught him with a punch.
If. That's the big word, if.
But we're doing it. This whole thing is an if.
I know.
One of the men, unfortunately, is dead, so it has to be an if.
This is the ultimate boxing argument. We've got more Ali fights to come. We're going to look at Liston 1 and 2. We're going to talk Rumble in the Jungle, of course, and come back to Thrilla in Manila, as well as Ali cements his greatness no matter where you have him on your all-time list. You're watching Ringside Top 10 Heavyweights, and we'll continue while we go to break.
And I'm not through yet.
Yes. This is Ringside, the Top 10 Heavyweights. We take you now to Miami for the third round of the Cassius Clay Sonny Liston fight.
Another jarring right hand that time, folks. Another one. Sonny wobbles. Cassius has him hurt. Sonny is talking to Sonny has a big mouth below his left eye. He has a cut below the eye, and he's getting hit with all the punches in the book. We're halfway through round 3. Sonny bleeding slightly from the nose also. Only 55 seconds remaining in round 3. Hold the bone. Cassius is a bit hurt. Sonny, still aggressive, very durable. or 8 seconds more in the third. I'd like to point out the champion is strong, durable, takes the good shot. However, he is being outmaneuvered at most points because this fella has that awkwardly fast style of going side to side, moving the upper part of his body. Minute 25 seconds to go in the fourth round. Sonny has some puffiness below his right eye now. Less than a minute to go in this fourth round. Ooh! The Liston hook started out as a jab, turned it short to a good hook. Half minute more in round number 4. Now we've had 4 fast rounds. What do you think is going through this youngster's mind? He's 12 minutes into the fight.
Well, he's talking a lot now. I don't know who he's looking like. He's arguing with his trainers, you know. But I don't know. Clay, I think, getting more confident as the fight go along.
Getting more confident?
I think so. As long as the fight goes, more confident he would be.
That's Angelo Dundee that he was arguing with, Joe. Angelo now is telling him off a little bit while he gets him ready. Is the fella surprising you? Is Sonny surprising you?
I think that Clay is surprising the whole world of going along with Sonny. And not only he's showing such to be in a good fight.
Thank you, champ. Getting ready for number 5.
Something wrong with Clay now. Something wrong with Clay. Something wrong with Clay.
I see that, Joe. His eyes are bothering him. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know exactly what happened. They're yelling from Cassius Clay's corner. Something got in his right eye. However, he's blinking badly.
All right, so Cassius Clay in trouble, blinded by something, having trouble with his eyes. Jerry, from your vantage point, what did you see?
Yeah, I didn't realize. Much later, Joe Polino, the cut man, told me. He told several people years and years later that was Moncel, which is a coagulant to stop bleeding, was put on Sonny's gloves. And as the round went on, as he hit him, it got near the eye area, and that could blind you, really. So it was a legitimate complaint, but looking at it, I said, what the hell is he doing now?
You had no idea.
Right.
All you knew there was commotion going on. Point of fact, Two other fighters in earlier Liston fights, Zora Foley and Eddie Machen, had complained of burning eyes too.
Well, it was the same corner all along, Willie Reddish and Joe Polino. And the other thing about that, which I thought was fascinating, was that the Muslims, the Nation of Islam guys at ringside, accused Angelo, when Angelo was wiping his face, of throwing the fight, of having Moncel or something in the sponge, and he was putting it in Ali's eye.
But you could see him wiping his eyes.
To prove it that he didn't, he turned around and he took the sponge and he put it in his eye here and here and said, "Look, guys, it ain't me."
Also, what you had was Clay is holding out his hand saying, "Take the gloves off, take the gloves off."
Because his eyes are burning, you want to get your hands to your eyes.
But he didn't want to fight.
Well,
he didn't know the extent. All he knew was his eyes were on fire.
I mean,
he wasn't quitting. I mean, he wasn't a quitter. It's just that he didn't know what was wrong. He said, "Cut the gloves off."
He at one point got up to go to the referee. Angelo Dundee again now pulls him back, because at that point a referee could come over, especially given the whole circumstances. Could have just said, "This is over."
The referee, Barney Felix, had already come to the corner and said everything okay.
Right.
He has now retreated back to his position.
Dundee has kind of brushed him off.
Yeah. Well, Dundee has sort of shoved him out.
That's what good trainers and seconds do. They get between the doctor and the fighter.
Yeah, and all he got for his efforts was a shoulder in his face.
Mm-hmm. He's trying to peer over it.
And here is Clay. He wants to, I don't know, quit, but he knows that only a crazy man is going to go out there blind to face Liston.
Imagine that, yeah.
And Dundee at the bell just puts a hand in his back and propels him to the middle. Go get him, champ. Shoves him right out into the ring.
An incredible moment. We're going to watch it right now. Again, when you think about going out there with the way his eyes were burning at the time, and to go out against a guy who was a straight killer in the ring, and yet Cassius Clay would handle himself quite well. Let's take a look at round number 5.
Sonny's going to try to pull it on. Still having some problems with his eyes. He's blinking and he's bouncing away continually. Liston still aiming toward the body with the big punches. Minute 30 seconds to go in the 5th. Sonny fired his best left hook so far. One minute to go, number 5. Four seconds remaining in the 5th. Only 10 seconds remaining as Sonny's still moving in. Cassius still bouncing punches away, blocking them. with slightly less than a minute more in the 6th round. The champion has slowed down a bit. The tempo has slowed in the fight. Only 30 seconds to go in the 6th round. Sonny can't seem to slip or knock down that jab effectively. Cassius throws it from all angles. Very tricky left lead, left jab. Seconds remaining in the 6th.
This is Ringside on ESPN Classic. I'm Brian Kenny, Bert Randolph, Sugar, Jerry Eisenberg with me. We return right now to Clay Liston fight from Miami, a landmark moment in sports history. The unthinkable happens as Liston quits between rounds. The world would never be quite the same again.
What do you think is going on in Sonny's mind at this point?
Well, I think Sonny now is beginning to worry now. At least his corners beginning to worry now, because I think that they feel now that Clay have all the confidence he needs and go home to defeat Sonny. So I think that the corner now beginning to worry a little bit now.
Now they're working, as we note, with our camera shots in there, below the left eye. They've already worked below the right eye. There you see them. Joe Polino trying to keep that cut closed. Do you feel as though Sonny being busted up a little bit, puffed up a little bit around the face, will this make a difference in Liston's thinking?
Well, they have to make a difference, because Liston now, I think he don't see too well out of both his eyes now, because they're pretty well puffed out. And I think Clay got all the confidence he needs now, so I think that he can't him go on winning now.
They might be stopping it. That might be all, ladies and gentlemen. Get up there, Joe. Get up there. Get up in the ring. The referee, Barney, you stopped the fight at the end of 6. Is that recorded as a 7th round knockout?
It is a 7th round knockout.
It's recorded as a 7th round knockout. And thank you, Barney. You did a good job. All right, Howard. Joe. What did he say? Wait a minute, Barney.
See if he cannot come. The doctor will let him
come. Cannot come. Okay. Okay, get Cassius free. Wait. Whoa. Hold it. Hold it. He's yelling behind us. Cassius Clay, wait a minute. Come here, champ.
I'm the greatest thing that ever lived.
Now, wait a minute.
I don't have.
Now, hold it. Move over, Joe. Joe, get on.
I don't have a mark on my face.
Hold it. Bedlam breaking out. Bedlam busting out
So
here.
great, I don't have a mark on my face.
Yeah.
And I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, can't nobody be against me.
Sonny,
I shook up the world. I know God. I know the real God.
Cassius, wait a minute, Cassius. Let me ask you this now. You told me when you visited in Los Angeles you could do it in 8. Well, you thought Sonny and figured Sonny was great. How come you did it in 6 or 7? You did it in 7.
I had him going in 8. I was getting ready to take him in the 8th, as you can see. But the man stopped it just to keep from making me look so great.
I see. Now, give us that poetry on number 7.
He wanted to go to heaven, so I took him in 7.
You took him in 7.
I am the king of the world.
Hold it.
I'm pretty.
Hold it. You're not that pretty.
I'm a bad man.
Wait.
I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
Hold it. Joe,
I shook up the world.
Wait a minute, Cash. Wait a minute.
You must listen to me.
Now listen to
I am the devil.
All right, hold it. Ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you
I
this.
can't be beat.
Joe, wait, hold it. They're throwing the chair, but
All right, so pandemonium after this fight. Jerry, your thoughts? What's running through your mind at this
Well,
point?
I'm still trying to find it hard to believe it. He runs over to us, and he leans across the ropes, and he's going, I told you, and you, and you, and you, I'm king of the world, king of the world. You must all bow to me. Now, everybody together, am I not the king of the world? And you could hear him say this. And I was half tempted to say, yeah.
What are you going to say, right?
You know what's strange is, if you look at that carefully, Liston has spat out his mouthpiece. And the first person to see that he's quit is Clay.
He's reacting before anybody else is.
He is
right.
in the middle of the ring with his arms up.
Right.
And nobody else yet knows what's happening. He has sensed it, or seen it, or knows it.
In his career, Liston, before, was there any quit in him before that you've seen?
Never. And this man was invincible. I mean, the next time I hear the word invincible, I'm running to the betting window and betting against him.
Mm-hmm.
But this man was invincible. This was impossible. He's not going to quit. He's going out on his shield. His shield was a stool. He quit. First time a heavyweight championship had ever changed hands like this since Willard and Dempsey in 1919, sitting on a stool.
And the interesting thing about it is that as soon as the decision was made, Ali was now the champion of the world. Now the critics came forth with, well, we really don't know how old he was. We really don't know how many fights he had.
Right.
He really got old in the ring. He got, there was still a total disbelief in Ali.
And you had no idea what was happening. Here was Liston offering up excuses too.
Oh, yeah.
What was the reaction
Shoulder.
to Liston at that point? Was he viewed as a quitter, or what were people saying about Liston at that point?
He came up with this thing which was transmitted to us through Jack Nilan, the manager. His shoulder, he had torn his shoulder and blah, 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 blah. And everybody looked at everybody else. The next day they brought x-rays to the press conference. And I remember saying to the guy next to me, I wonder whose shoulder that is.
Yes. You had no idea.
How was Clay viewed at that point? Again, Jerry, in just about the old guard now having to come to terms with this guy.
They were very upset about it, I will say. And I don't know whether I was an old guard or new guard, but I thought it was great. But they were very upset about it. And then they didn't have time to digest that because the next morning,
the next day,
he comes in with the press conference that rocks the world. My name is Cassius X. He goes through all this, and then he goes into the speech, and I remember the red ants stay with the red ants, the black ants stay with the black ants, rutabagas stay with rutabagas or whatever. And
you were taking notes.
Yeah. And suddenly my reaction to it was, because I didn't believe the Nation of Islam at that point was more than a cult, I said, they got the name for the stationery.
And it really was a shock to everyone. I'm not sure that it was just the fight, as Jerry said. It was the name change and everything. But you heard a lot of rumbling and mumbling about this new guy, and he's a mouth, and he can't fight, and as you say, there were all kinds of excuses trotted out. Everybody had an excuse. 3 rounds in 3 years, shoulder now, they've thrown the shoulder in, cuts, he had cuts.
Right. Revisionist history.
And afterwards,
many revisionist historians out there.
And afterwards,
Bert. Yes.
it was the Muslims threatened his family. It's afterwards, all kinds of things like that, which just didn't make any sense.
And he just was sitting there on. I don't think Liston was that smart to think all this up. It was the writers excusing their pick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely
point.
what it was.
Well, I don't know if were you new guard or old guard? You're old guard now. You're new guard at the time, right? Were you? Well,
I was barely on guard.
You always have something. Ali once said, "I'm the astronaut of boxing. Joe Louis and Jack Dempsey were just jet pilots. I'm in the world of my own." And that he was, at least on October 30th, 1974. Ali was 32 when he took on George Foreman in Zaire. Big George was considered to be the greatest puncher in heavyweight history. Most fight analysts were certain that Ali would be overwhelmed by Foreman's brute power. Just like Sonny Liston, Foreman found Ali to be an elusive target. And this time, an older Ali would outbox and occasionally outmuscle the formidable champ, a man who had destroyed Joe Frazier just a year earlier. We take you now to Africa for early round coverage of the Rumble in the Jungle.
Can Ali
The stunning turn of events as Muhammad Ali knocks out George Foreman back here at Gleason's Gym. Now joined by Jerry Eisenberg, columnist and longtime boxing historian and author, Teddy Atlas, ESPN boxing analyst, and of course Bert Randolph Sugar. Jerry, let me start with you. You were at that fight.
Yes,
your thoughts as you were seeing that whole fight unfold?
Well, I was kind of smug about it because I picked him to win the fight. I picked him to win by knockout. I don't think anybody else did except the late Jerry Lisker. And I knew why, but we could talk about that later if you want. And as it unfolded, the only time I had any doubt was the first round. Because in that first round, I thought, we'd have to look at the tape, I thought Ali got hit in the neck, or maybe even on the jaw, and was hurt. And that's when he retreated to the ropes. And all this stuff about plan and strategy and everything has nothing. Ali trains Ali. Ali fights for Ali. Ali decided to do this. It was done. And it won the fight. He let the guy punch himself out.
Teddy, I thought it was interesting just the way Ali came out to make a stand against, the guy who had been a killer to this point. What are your thoughts the way Ali came out and the way he handled the whole fight?
Planned, no accident. This was going to be fought also on a psychological frontier, not just a physical one. And Ali understood that better than anybody did. This guy had been a bully. This guy was, the latest Sonny Liston. He followed in the footsteps of Sonny Liston. This is a guy who had never been stood up to. This is a guy who always had his way. And Ali understood the psychological profile of a guy like that. And, of course, he had already dealt with that in Liston. So he understood he was going to go out there instead of float like a butterfly. He was going to sting like a bee early. He was going to catch him a right hand and let him know, hey, tonight is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, Teddy, as we're watching this, these are real hard shots coming from Foreman. And again, in hindsight, you can say, he just punched himself out. But these are thudding shots that he's putting on Ali.
Yeah, Ali's blocking a lot of them. But, of course, Ali, maybe that's part of the reason he's in the position he's in today.
That Foreman is thudding punches. If you watch every round, almost at the end of the round, Ali punctuates the round with like 6 or 7 very tight inside punches, inside Foreman's wild swings. To go to Teddy's point, yes, psychologically, you see Ali in there talking to him. Is that the hardest you can hit? Taunting the man who's beating the bejabbers out of him, it seems. But it had always been a psychological fight, and just very quickly, Foreman got off on the wrong foot. He came off the plane in Zaire with 2 German shepherds. German shepherds were what the Belgian troops had used to keep crowd control in the old Belgian Congo, which was now Zaire. He was never going to be the favorite of the crowd, whom Ali now turned to his side. So everything in there was framed for Ali. And I think Foreman was so beaten that if you watch that count, he's up at 9 and just walks to his corner.
Teddy, one more thing on tactics, and it seemed like, and as Bert pointed out, it seemed like Ali was able to control things right up in the middle, right in front of his own face. What were your thoughts on tactics?
Foreman was never a speed demon. He's a big guy, and when you're a big guy standing straight up, there's a lot of big target to find. There's no doubt about that. I feel very, very strongly that Foreman gave up in this fight. See, I'm going to take it further than somebody else. He hit Ali with better shots, and Ali hit him with cleaner shots than that one that made him pirouette around the ring. And he did that pirouette, he was giving in. And every bit of that pirouette was him just descending down and just finally saying, I want no more part of this guy. He had taken and absorbed better shots earlier, but he finally got broken down, and he finally made up his mind to submit. And that's why I think that he came back, because he had to exercise those goals. He found out that night it was harder to quit than it was to fight on in spots. And that stayed with him forever. And that created the second George Foreman.
Right.
The guy who came back years later and wasn't athletically better, but he was mentally better because he was armed with that information and that experience.
Jerry, tell us about what happened after the fight, what you saw.
Well, after the fight, we had almost a monsoon. The heaviest rainfall I ever saw in my life. And it was Africa, so the next minute the sun was shining. Remember, the fight was at 5 in the morning. And about 3 or 4 of us went back to this compound where we were living. We were looking for him. And someone said he was down by the river. We walked down, and he was standing there staring at the Congo River, not moving a muscle. And somebody started to go to him, and I said, wait a minute. And we just waited and waited about 5 minutes, and he knew we were there. And when he was finished, whatever he was thinking, he turned around, he looked at us, and he said, fellas, you will never know what tonight meant to me.
Back here at Gleason's Gym, ringside, our heavyweight top 10. We're at number 2, Muhammad Ali. We have to talk Ali Frazier, of course. Jerry, Ali Frazier 3. Why a third time around? How did that come about?
Came about because, number one, Muhammad thought he couldn't fight anymore. It came around because Frazier was determined he would fight no matter what and proved it by continuing to fight when he shouldn't. And I remember Ali was fighting Bugner in Malaysia about 9 months before, 8 months before, and he retired. Now it's the formal retirement at noon, and at 2 o'clock, Dave Anderson and I walk into his room, and he's watching Frazier on the screen. He said, "He's an old man. He can't fight. He can't. I'll kill him. I'll kill him." I said, "I thought you retired." He said, "That was 2 hours ago."
So he was going back to fight.
When he saw that tape, he really relished it, and he was convinced it would be nothing.
Bert, what were your thoughts again after the first fight was so crisp and was the fight of the century? I know there's a bunch of them, but
How many
this was
fights of the century
this was the
during that?
fight of the century. And then the second fight did not live up to that. Was there a thought that the third fight could be what it was?
Not really. I didn't get that sense. By now, Frazier has been beaten by Foreman. By now, Frazier is beginning to look old. By now, Ali is beginning to look worn around the edges. And it just doesn't add up to as great a fight or anywhere in the neighborhood of the first. For all those reasons.
Teddy, what is your take on it? And we're going to take a look at a little bit of this, but your take on, I guess, the limits of human endurance and two, basically immovable objects being flung at each other one more time.
It was scary. It was humbling. It was one of those things that could make you be quiet, maybe even make him be quiet for a minute.
I don't know about that, yeah.
When you saw that kind of punishment, and you saw that kind of courage and that kind of grit, and you knew that they would not leave in the ring the same way as they came in, it was just humbling. And if you were a human being, it concerned you a little bit to see that kind of punishment. Quite honestly, when guys deteriorate, these guys had deteriorated to the point where it made for a great fight because they were there to find each other much more than they would have found each other when they were younger. Right. And the only thing that remained was their courage. Their courage was still great. Their determination and character was still great, but their skills were lessened just enough to make a great fight.
Jerry?
I wanted the fight to stop. I didn't care who won it. I didn't care who.
At what point were you thinking that?
I'm talking about the going into the 14th round. When Ali, all he had to do was go like this, and Frazier's done. He couldn't walk the 4 feet to do that. These two guys had absolutely nothing left, and it was so emotional. I just didn't want to see anymore. And I'll tell you, it's one thing I will say, that they are locked together because of that fight, more than the emotions of the first fight, more than the disappointment of the second fight. They made each other better than they were, and that's why it's remembered.
One other thing should be pointed out before the scheduled 15th round. Eddie Futch, trainer for Joe Frazier, should be given a large kudo and an award and a memory here because he stopped the fight. Frazier did not want it stopped. That was his will. Mm-hmm. As Teddy said, he willed to go on. Eddie Futch said, "Nobody will ever forget what you did here tonight." And that's true. Nobody ever will, but Eddie Futch, feeling for his man, stopped that fight.
Stay tuned here on ESPN Classic. We'll go back to Manila again. More late round coverage from Ali Frazier 3.
Round 12. Ali starts the round, every round, scoring heavily. Seems to be coasting a little bit here, and Ali is scoring on him. Two minutes left in the round. Looking for a spot on the inside. The Round half over.
Get out of the rope, Jeff. Get off the rope. Get off the rope, Sully.
A minute to go in the round. Frazier seems to be bleeding from the mouth. First sign of blood in the fight. Almost over. Round 13. Ali trying to set the pace again. Ali ready to open up with those combinations. Both boys slow down for a moment. Left in the round. Grabbing around the neck. Big round for Ali. Ali slipped. Ali holding. Frazier looked awful tired, is puffed around both eyes now. Ken Norton.
John, for the first time, Frazier sustained a small cut under his right eye.
Ali has gone out for a knockout, I think, in this round. Whether he gets it or not is something else. What about the interview in the ring? Frazier's badly hurt. Frazier was within a punch or two of going down. The doctor comes up and looks at Frazier. I think it's going to be over. It's all over. Did you have any doubt about winning at any time?
Well, round 10, I was surprised Joe had so much stamina. I was surprised as Shuby was. And if I didn't have the condition, I know I would have lost. There was too much pressure.
I think he deserved a lot of
He is the greatest fighter of all times next to me.
This is Ringside. Here is a recap of Bert Sugar's list of the top 10 heavyweights as we continue the countdown. At number 10, Larry Holmes. The pride of Easton, Pennsylvania, won his 48 fights before losing a disputed decision to Michael Spinks. Holmes was heavyweight champion from 1978 until 1985, defending his title 21 times. Number 9 is Smokin' Joe Frazier. Frazier's will, skill, and left hook made him one of boxing's most feared sluggers. Joe's motto was kill the body and the head will die. Right behind Frazier is the man who sent him to the canvas 6 times, George Foreman. Big George's pro career spanned 3 decades, recapturing the heavyweight crown at 45 by knocking out Michael Morrow. Number 7 on the list is the Cincinnati Cobra, Ezzard Charles. Charles fought in 13 championship bouts and won 96 fights, 58 by knockout. Number 6, it's The Rock, Rocky Marciano. The Brockton Blockbusters record speaks for itself. He won all 49 of his professional fights, 43 by knockout. At number 5 on Bert's list is the Fighting Marine, Gene Tunney, who won 61 fights, 50 by knockout. Tunney is followed by a trailblazer, Jack Johnson, the first African-American champion. Johnson wore the heavyweight crown from 1908 to 1915. Number 3 on the countdown is the Manasseh Mauler, Jack Dempsey. The colorful heavyweight captivated huge crowds in the Roaring 20s with his sensational knockouts. Number 2 on the list is the self-proclaimed greatest, Muhammad Ali. Many experts back his boasts as boxing's #1 fighter. It's time for number 1, and of course, Bert, here's the choice. Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis. Number one, you go with Joe Louis. Why?
Well, Brian, to be candid, each of us is raised with a hero. I don't want to even pretend you're as old as I am, but my generation, our hero was Joe Louis. I'm rooting for him. Your hero, Muhammad Ali.
Well, I don't say that, but you look at the objective criteria in front of you. You're looking more at the resume of the 12-year reign, 25 title defenses. You're saying that outweighs, because it's difficult for me, and I'll just say this. It's difficult to envision in a fantasy boxing matchup Joe Louis being able to find and hit Muhammad Ali. I think that's what it comes down to for me.
But that's not my criterion.
Okay.
My criterion sounds nice. My criterion is not how they would do against others. It was how they do in each case,
right,
in their own era and generation, and what effect they had. And Joe Louis, with 25 title defenses, 22 of those were knockouts. I mean, that's great. When they say great, to me, it's Joe Louis.
And that's during World War II, where he lost a lot of those, a chance to, where I fought so many exhibitions.
He was fighting exhibitions.
He could have had many more title defenses, more than that 25, which is the all-time record.
I mean, people have had more fights than he has. You look on both sides of the ledger. Ezra Charles had more fights who succeeded him. Jimmy Braddock had more fights who preceded him. But his fights counted, every one of them. And the way he ended them, I don't think that there was anybody in the history of boxing who was a greater finisher once he had you on the hook. Ask Billy Conn how that works. Mm-hmm. Billy Conn, for 12 rounds, outpointed Joe Louis. Then he decided to slug with him. And as Billy Conn later said in the service, Joe, why didn't you just lend me your title for 12 months? Joe said, I lent it to you for 12 rounds. You didn't know what to do with it. You got close to Joe Louis, you were through. Mm-hmm. He had a deliberate approach. Yes, he wasn't fast like an Ali, but he came right forward and with either hand could destroy you. And I just give preference to heavyweights with a knockout punch. Muhammad Ali might have. Yes, against Cleveland Williams. Yes, against Sonny Liston's second fight. Exceptions.
And finished off George Foreman.
Joe Louis had won every round, every fight. To me, that's what a heavyweight champion does, and that's why he's number one in my mind's eye.
The fight against Max Schmeling, the second fight. This is another fight of the century, but if you're talking about the handful of great fights...
I just like fights of the century. Aren't we up to Buck Rogers' 2,500?
But this was. So talk about that. Obviously, more social implications in this with the fighter from Germany, the fighter from the United States, 1938. Talk about this fight.
This fight had implications over and above. It was probably the greatest sociological event held in a ring in the history of boxing. Might have been in the history of sports. Mm-hmm. It was a preview of the war to come. It was Max Schmeling representing, albeit he was never a Nazi, the Third Reich. He had gotten letters from Adolf Hitler exhorting him to go forward and win. Joe Louis had been at the White House, and Franklin Roosevelt had felt his muscles and said, Joe, we need these muscles for democracy. You had pickets outside. There were calls not to have this fight because Schmeling had already beaten Louis 2 years earlier, before Louis became champion. And the fear was Schmeling would win and take the title home to Germany. And yet in 2 minutes and 4 seconds, Joe Louis not only destroyed Max Schmeling, he destroyed the myth of Aryan supremacy. This was the greatest fight in terms of its implications in the history of boxing.
What was different from the fight in 1936 as far as, Schmeling saying, I see something? What was different in that fight, in the second fight?
Well, I just think that pure and simply Joe Louis had improved. He had taken the fight seriously. Schmeling was scared beyond belief now because of the furor all of a sudden behind him. But most importantly, Joe Louis wanted to get it done and done quickly. And when in the dressing room, and Jimmy Cannon said, Joe, I got this going 5 rounds, Joe Louis, with his hand in gauze, just held one thumb up. He knew what he was going to do, and he did it. In fact, when he knocked out John Henry Johnson, the former light heavyweight champion, in a subsequent defense, and John Henry Johnson went backwards and fell down in 2 minutes and I think 25 seconds, Joe just said he lasted longer than Schmeling.
This is Ringside, the top 10 heavyweights. We go back to 1935. Joe Louis knocking out Max Baer.
The big question tonight is, can Baer's powerful right hand stop the Brown Bomber? For weeks, the entire sports world has been arguing about it. Baer's fans are confident. He knocked out the giant Primo Carnera, and he also knocked out Max Schmeling. They figure his experience is too much for Louis. Joe Louis is confident, too. He's got a very impressive record. In his short career of 14 months, he's fought 24 times as a pro, and he's won them all, 19 by knockout, and most of those within 5 rounds. Yankee Stadium jammed to the rafters tonight. 84,000 fans, and a gate of over $1 million. The first $1 million gate since the famous Dempsey-Tunney long count battle in Chicago 8 years before. Everyone's stunned by the fury of Louis's attack. The bell, and it saves Maxie from a knockout. Baer's down. That last hard right to the jaw did it. Up at the count of 9. Three lightning left hooks to the jaw. The bell saves Maxie for the second time. The first knockdown was a right to the jaw, the second from the left, and this one another right. This Louis packs dynamite in both hands. See the knockout in slow motion in just a moment. Now let's take a good look at the knockout in slow motion. Baer has absolutely no defense against Louis's lightning-fast punching.
Fourth round, winner is Louis.
Joe Louis defeats former champion Max Baer in less than 12 minutes of fighting. The Bomber's 25th straight victory.
Welcome back to Gleason's Gym here in Brooklyn. I'm Brian Kenny, and we're rolling in vintage fights of our #1 heavyweight of all time, Joe Louis. This is Ringside, the top 10 heavyweights. On June 19, 1941, the Brown Bomber took on Billy Conn at the Polo Grounds in New York. It was Louis's 18th defense of his title that he won 4 years earlier after knocking out James Braddock. As Louis observed Conn training, he commented, "I didn't know he was so rough. The boy likes to fight. I can see that." The Pittsburgh-born contender with the fast hands sparred 6 to 10 rounds a day, prepping for his shot at the title. He would push the great Joe Louis to the brink. Here is early round action. I'm Brian Kenny, and this is Ringside, the top 10 heavyweights. Joe Louis dominated boxing from the 1930s into the early 1950s, defending his title 25 times. That's the all-time record. After serving in the U.S. Army in World War II, Louis's first post-war fight was a rematch with Billy Conn in 1946. The Brown Bomber knocked out Conn in the 8th round. Next up for the champ was a heavyweight from the Bronx, Tammy Moriello. Perhaps not taking the fight too seriously, Louis was not in top condition when he entered the ring. Moriello gave the fans their money's worth before Louis lowered the boom. Here's the highlights from that bout. When looking back at the bout with Moriello, Louis said, "That was the last time I really felt like my old self. I had complete control, energy, and power." The Brown Bomber defended his title 2 more times before initially retiring in 1949. But financial problems forced Louis back into the ring. He'd fight 10 more times, retiring finally after getting knocked out by Rocky Marciano in 1951. Let me throw some names at you guys who didn't make the top 10. Evander Holyfield didn't make your top 10. Where's Evander?
He's on the cusp. He's number 11. He's one of the greats. He's in my book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters. He just didn't make the top 10 heavyweights. But again, all this is argumentative.
A great reign at cruiserweight, and you said, hey, being a great light heavyweight worked for Ezra Charles. You don't take that into account with Evander?
I'm a big Evander fan. He's just right outside the top 10. Ever since the FBI started 10 top lists, I was constrained to do 10. Right. He makes the top 11.
All right. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, 9 title defenses? I'm talking about in the first reign, 7 by knockout, cleaned out the division. Now, again, it didn't end well for him, but what about Tyson?
He had 5 years. That was it. Whenever he'd face another great, he didn't do too well. Maybe Michael Spinks was the only time. But ask Lennox Lewis, who's another one we'll discuss, Evander. And again, you rub up against other greatness, and if you don't win, you're not a great.
Where do you have Tyson, though?
I'd have him about 14 or 15.
14, okay, that's fair, although maybe up around 12, but I'm not sure. All right, Lennox Lewis. And now here's back to my thing where put in Lennox Lewis, in reality, 6'5", 250, with his hand speed. How would he do against the all-time greats? Where's Lennox?
Lennox would be in the top 20. That's about as high. Really, he didn't have the greats to fight. And by the time he got to Evander, he was way over the hill.
Right.
And so was Mike Tyson. But by the same token, I can't take somebody from one generation or one era and pit him against another. This is greats in their era.
Right.
Otherwise, I've got apples and oranges. Granted, it's a bar question. There's a bar argument. Speaking of that, where's the bar? I'm more concerned with the bar than Lennox.
You're moments away here, but where is Lennox if you had to put him in your top 20?
19 or 20.
Behind Tyson.
Yes.
Even despite what happened.
In their peak.
And they're very, I know, but they're close in age, and yet when they fought, it wasn't close.
When they fought, it wasn't Tyson.
Okay, that's true.
When I did my book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters, I did not even have Lennox, ironically, in the top 100 of all time.
Really?
All fighters.
Oh, man, you got to make an addendum on that book. All right, and Jim Jeffries.
Well, okay,
quickly,
you won't buy it.
Jeffries, of course, I would hope you would comp me there. All right, so what about Jeffries? Where's Jeffries, Jim Jeffries?
He would be number 17.
Okay, so
behind
he's there.
Corbett and Sullivan.
All right, had a good time. We'll let Bert go. All right, Bert, thank you so much. Hey, we had a great time here at Gleason's Gym. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll be here again, and we'll see you here on ESPN Classic. That's been our top 10 heavyweights ringside here at Gleason's Gym. Thanks for joining us, everybody.